Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the Power Up by PNM podcast hour in partnership with the Hispano Chamber of Commerce, featuring some of our community's favorite leaders and small business owners. So plug in your favorite device, grab a sack lunch and your favorite beverage, and join us every Tuesday at noon to meet the movers and shakers in our community that are not letting anything hold them back. We are here to inspire you to continue to grow and scale your small business venture. Don't forget to call us at 505-842-9003 for all of your PPE supply needs. And for this podcast and any and all other information about the Hispano Chamber of Commerce, visit us at www.ahcnm.org/chamber chat. We'll give you another minute if you are joining us live.
Hey, welcome everybody. This is JP Espinoza with the Powered Up by PNM podcast. We're excited that you are joining us today. Today we have an amazing guest. You're going to love meeting him, Mr. Tyler Chavez with Valley Fence. We're so excited to have him on the show. Hey, but before we get there, we have a couple of quick announcements. So don't forget the Storytellers event. Moises Gonzalez, who is a UNM associate professor, will be talking about the power of storytelling. That's coming up Saturday, July 17th from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. In addition, we have the Daycation Destination, which is a traditional Spanish market in Santa Fe on Sunday, July the 25th from 10:30 to 5 p.m. Approximately 250 Spanish colonial artists from New Mexico and southern Colorado will be there and taking part. It'll be in downtown Santa Fe. You'll enjoy wood carving, tin work, hide painting, and a lot of great other artistic features. You're not going to want to miss that. That's going to happen again on July the 25th. Now, one of our big events here at the Chamber is the Biz Gratis. If you're in need of meeting new connections, you're not going to miss that event, because here at the Chamber, we believe that you are one connection away. And so we encourage you to come out to the Biz Gratis. That's going to happen on Wednesday, July 28th from 5:30 to 7:30 at the Ginger Bar and Bistro on the east side. In addition, don't forget, we are your PPE provider. Now, if you're in need of PPE, you can call the Chamber, but in order to qualify, you have to be a business who's under 50 employees. You have to operate here in the Albuquerque city limits or the county, Bernalillo County limits. Also, you must provide your business information and register online. You can do that anytime, Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. here at the Chamber, but make sure you register for that. You can look at all of the Chamber's events at our website at ahcnm.org. So you don't miss out on anything. Hey, again, today we have a wonderful guest, Mr. Tyler Chavez with Valley Fence. Hey, Tyler, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much for letting me be here. I appreciate it.
Man, I'm excited, man. You're one of my favorite board members, man. No disrespect to our other board members, right?
Well, you've been one of my favorite mentors. No disrespect to the rest of the mentors. And so we'll
Yeah, man. Well, I'm excited, man. Valley Fence has been a legacy company here in Albuquerque, man.
Oh, thank you. My grandfather started it in 1969, and I'm very proud to tell people that. So.
Man, so it's 3 generations already, huh?
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah, man. Congratulations on that.
My father and grandfather, they thumped a little bit harder than my father and I have on this third generation. It's been a little bit easier. But all jokes aside, I've been super blessed, and so is my father, to get to follow in his father's footsteps and to be a part of something bigger than ourselves, but together it's just been special.
Man, how big is Valley Fence, man?
Oof. Well, we have somewhere in the neighborhood of 85 to 100 employees. Wow. In the summer. That'll get down a little bit in the winter when we slow down a little bit, but we never have less than about 65 employees, and the number varies, but somewhere around $14 to $16 million a year. Wow. is what we're doing right now, and so very thankful for that, excited. We've increased that here recently during these nutty times. We're thankful to be very busy, though. Man,
it's really interesting. So I remember when I first moved to Albuquerque, I saw the Valley Fence commercials everywhere, man. That's pretty cool. So you guys have a huge market presence, but I think there's a belief that you guys only do fencing, but you guys do so much more than that.
Yeah, we do a lot of other things. all the way from residential to commercial. And so in the residential side of things, we do fence. We'd be happy to do a cedar fence for your grandma, so to speak, or for anybody, of course. But we also have an automated plasma cutter, and so our custom gates are pretty extravagant and can be very ornamental depending on what you want to do. We have a powder coating facility, and so we do more traditional iron working and fabricating and and so our custom capabilities are there as well. And so we like to be willing to take your vision and turn it into a reality.
Come on, man.
And if we cookie cuttered that up too much, we couldn't do that. And so there are times where we let people know, hey, this is the product, this is the application, that's how we have to do it. But most of the time, we really do just like to sit down and say, what are you trying to accomplish? And then we'll try to help you get there.
Man, that's pretty powerful. Now, I want to talk a little bit about, let's start off with your grandfather's vision, right? Because somewhere along the way, someone had to have a really amazing vision to build a legacy company that lasts 3 generations. How does vision play a role in your company structure?
Oh man, well, my grandfather, he just has no limits. He's a true entrepreneur.
Right.
I thought I was, as a young man, and I do have some of those characteristics, but I've learned that it's a special person to be an entrepreneur.
Right.
And the reckless abandon that he pursued his dreams and his goals with is what it takes to be successful. And I'm not being self-deprecating. I just being honest. I'm not sure if I could have manifested this reality that he did.
Right.
Because he had to believe in it for years. He worked for Cardinal Fence in the old days, he likes to say. And but pretty early on, he realized, oh, if you're not going to treat me like an owner, then I'll treat myself like an owner. That's all right. It's no problem.
That's right.
But you're the owner, and you want to. Fair enough. You're good to the very select few and to the people that own the business. Justifiably, there's nothing even wrong with that. But he learned pretty early on. Oh well, I'm really good at this. I'm pretty sure I can not only do the work, I can run it differently than you.
Come on.
And so both sides of that coin seemed to kind of really drive him.
Yeah.
And he just didn't see limits. And so he would take an idea and just pursue it, like I said, recklessly. And now in life, sometimes those moments were beautiful and sometimes they were painful.
Sure.
Because you don't walk through this world with that much passion or run through it or bulldoze through it, pun intended, I guess, on this one, right? Bulldoze through it without there being some real highs and some real lows. But his desire and his effort is what gave our family a real chance to get to that next level of success as far as the business goes, as far as having something sustainable that can help our community and our family for years to come, not days or weeks.
Tyler, one of my personal passions in life is creating generational wealth and really creating legacy type businesses for my children, my grandchildren, great grandchildren, maybe one day, and I really admire what your grandfather and your dad and now what you're continuing to do. How was that transition when your grandfather decided to say, hey, I think I want to step back and really let my son take over? How did that work?
Oh man, really interesting. And this is one of the favorite parts of this story for me.
Yeah.
Is I mean this with the utmost respect.
Sure.
But it didn't come natural for my grandfather. He is that old lion on the plain that will by nature needs to be beaten by a younger lion before he's willing to admit that maybe he's not on top. And we make that joke around, the old lion. We kind of make that joke tongue in cheek with him, not just behind his back, of course, Josh, but with him. But so he forced himself almost to make the right decisions with my dad.
Yeah.
And I really respected that because there's certain things in life that are easy, and those are easy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And I used to think that some people would make things look easy, and there's a time and place for that discussion. But certain things in life are easy, and certain things are hard.
Right.
When you commit to the hard ones, or commit to the things that don't make sense, that feels extra special to me.
Come on, man.
And so for him, he didn't want to turn that business over.
Right.
He likes to be successful. He wanted to take over. He didn't want a small business. He didn't want to make a living. He didn't want to keep the lights on. He kind of wants to take over the world. And so even to his own son, just being honest, that moment of let me step back and let me watch your legacy grow, he did it, but it did not come very natural to him.
Right.
And so I've learned to appreciate and respect that all the more. If he was just one of those guys that was just begging to go travel the world as soon as he could do it, I've always been a wanderer, and I'm just ready to go. That would be nice for my dad, happenstance.
Right.
Theoretically.
Right.
Hey, I got a chance to step in, and he did something over here, and in theory, that would have organically been a pretty smooth transition. But I have learned to respect the other way so much more because of how hard he tried to do it.
Right.
And so he put these things in place, and he allowed my father to step into his own role, even though that was difficult for him.
Right.
He by nature is a pretty forceful personality. And now, of course, he's mellowed out, but he's a pretty forceful personality. And so to let my father step into the ring, so to speak, and learn his own way was not easy, but it's part of what's made my dad the man he is, and obviously one of my heroes, and that is rolled down to where my father's not a big micromanager.
Sure.
He wants you to be your own man, and that applies to not only his son but to his employees.
Right. It's really fascinating. I want to. The first time I was introduced to Valley Fence was through your father, Paul. Right. And I can honestly tell this story. When I first met your dad, one thing that really shined bright was his strong sense of values. His values were not only shining, but they were inspiring. And from the very first day that I met your father, I knew he was someone different. I knew he was someone special. And to this day, I admire him to the highest level of admiration.
That means the world to me.
Paul, if you're listening, I'm one of your biggest fans. So, man, thank you so much for all the work that you've done. And not only that, but he also led when he was on the board, because he was, when I first met him, he was a board member of the chamber. And when I saw his dedication to service, that's when it made me say, you know what, maybe I need to contribute more and level up as a board member, because he was a treasurer at the time when I came on the board, 2015, 2016. So I have a big shout out to Paul. Well, what an amazing story.
That's very interesting you say that, though, because, very interesting the way our journeys go, because I would credit you and a couple of others, but of who have inspired me to not just be on this board for on the resume, or for the networking, or for the experience, or for the insight. Those are all great, and I wouldn't bemoan anybody who chose to be on a board for a few of those reasons. But it's a smidgen hollow. Yeah. It's a little hollow if you're not careful. And so it's very interesting that maybe he helped mentor you a smidgen.
Yeah, he did.
In how you conduct yourself on the board, because I felt like you've done the same thing at times in one-on-one conversations, but also just by your gravity, just by your pull, to see your passion and to see that you want to make a difference in what you're doing. Your time is valuable, and so if you're here for an hour or two, it's because you are committed for an hour or two, and that's been inspiring to me. I'm not exactly sure. I haven't solidified my role, but the passion I have for this board is growing every day because of people like you and a long list of others, of course. Thank you so much, man. That's so kind of you. One thing I think you really got to figure out, number one, your voice, and understand what that voice is when you're serving on a board. And this is a really interesting topic for those people who want to really impact the community. But, I believe that each of us have these gifts and talents that are built within us, right? And when you understand what the need of the organization is and how it aligns with your gift and talent, which is your unique ability, that's when the magic really happens in community service, is tying the organization's needs to your gifts and talents, so you can actually feel that. And, I witnessed that through your father and so many others. I'm witnessing it through you, because now as you're starting to grow as a board member and your desire to really impact the community is becoming really evident. So congratulations to you. Thank you. I remember the very first time your dad took me on a tour of your facilities, and I think he had just graduated college, or you had just moved back, right? Yes. And it was during that transition time. But talking about these values, I witnessed the values lived out through the entire organization. How does an entrepreneur or business owner build those type of values of integrity, commitment, dedication, not just with the ownership, but throughout the entire employee base? I think an openness. Sure. My father has never shied away from who he is. Right. Even to the extent of from time to time, some folk are not super comfortable with him being maybe potentially sharing his faith. Right. He's very respectful, but he is it's a faith-based business. He's a faith-based man. And if that came up, he'd be happy to discuss it with you. Right. It has been mentioned in our commercials casually at times or lightly that we are faith-based.
Yes.
And that has ruffled some feathers.
Yeah.
And that's all right. That's all right.
That's okay.
That's okay.
Dang right, it's okay.
You know, and it's okay to not like that we're faith-based.
Right.
This is all okay. It takes all kinds. And so, yes, I know who we are, and I know what makes me tick and us tick, and I can respect the other side of that coin too. It's all right. Maybe we really aren't a good fit business-wise if who we are doesn't sit well with you. That really is okay. I think sometimes there's this idea that every customer needs to be your customer.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Right? That we're gluttons.
Come on.
A little bit.
And that's power.
And I appreciate the idea. And again, to tie it, my grandfather, he talks about getting his shoes from the dump.
Right.
And I have a lot of privilege 2 generations later.
Right.
And he talks about getting his shoes from the dump. And so that's part of who he is, and that's ingrained in him, and that affects the way we do business, the way we treat people. But there's also another side of that coin to where we do have to have some broader perspective than just survival.
Right.
And he had no choice at that time but to survive.
Right.
But a couple generations later, and it's part of what my legacy, I believe, is to manage where we are now.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about that legacy, because you talk about your grandfather being the old line. I totally get that tenacity, and you got to roar, baby. I get that, and because you're really building something that's powerful. And then your dad has come in, and he took the roar, and he basically from a 30,000 foot view from the outside, he institutionalized those values, right?
Yeah, I think he was willing to do them even when they hurt.
Right.
To answer your question from a little bit earlier, I think the way you kind of had it ingrained is I think people saw him do it when it wasn't convenient.
That's right.
And I think that's again, it's very easy to conveniently do things. When something's convenient, it's right there in the definition. It's easy. It makes sense. It's organically flowing.
Right.
But when it hurts to do the right thing.
Come on, man. Come on, baby.
That's different. And I think that my father is not perfect, but I think he figured out a long time ago from my grandfather that truly respecting a higher power, whatever that is to you.
That's right.
I can respect it, but respecting a higher power and trying to do the right thing, whatever that is to you.
That's right.
Because that's also personal. But there are good results that come of that.
That's right.
But you have to be willing to do it even when it hurts.
Come on, man. That's exactly right.
Powerful from my father.
That is super powerful. So you had your grandfather line, you have your father, I'm calling him the institutionalist, right? He institutionalized. Now you graduated from college, you came back home, and you had some choices. You didn't have to move back to New Mexico.
No, sir.
No.
My father, I have to give my whole family, but my father in particular has always wanted me to be my own man and was never going to hold anything over my head from the business or just emotionally. He always wanted me to be back in New Mexico. This is where he was from, of course.
Yeah.
But he was always, my wife's family's from the Northeast, and so he always knew that it's possible I might end up out there.
Because you went to school in the Northeast, didn't you?
I went to school in Texas.
In Texas,
I went to school in Texas, actually, but she's from the Northeast and then came out, and we met in Texas. And
gotcha.
So,
yeah.
So it worked out wonderfully. But no, I had some choices. Texas was very good to me.
Sure.
I really enjoyed Texas. Her family's from the Northeast.
Right.
And I like Colorado. I have some friends and family in Colorado. Beautiful place. And so
indeed.
I had some options, but New Mexico is home and will be home.
So let me ask you this, Tyler. So now that you are moving into leadership, right, and within your organization, with this third generation, tell me a little bit about what are you bringing to the table that you can build off of what your grandfather and what your father has built. Tell me a little bit about that.
I'm trying to bring a perspective shift. If I think now that I've thought about it, and now I've been back for 8 years now, so it's a while. I've had a little time to perfect this answer.
Yeah.
Josh is far from perfected, but you know what I mean.
I do.
But it's one of those things where you want to. 8 years seems like you would have mastered the world. I thought in 8 years I would have had this whole thing figured out, right? I'm going to have life figured out. I'm going to have our business figured out. I'm going to have this all figured out. But what I have seen is my perspective is going to reign true. I can bring that to the table, and it'll be there on good days and bad days.
Right.
Part of that, and we might talk about it a little bit later, is kind of that perspective shift is what we've had to deal with through COVID.
Yeah.
Because this pursuit of the old norm, very, very dangerous in my opinion.
Very dangerous.
On a personal level to people,
sure,
but also on a business. I did have my brother-in-law told me one time I was kind of struggling. I have a 15-month-old at home right now, and it's the best blessing I've ever had in my life.
Yeah.
But it was kicking my butt a while back, and I said, man, well, all the things I'm trying, they're not working.
Yeah.
None of it. And he kind of like he's got a very calm demeanor, JP, a smirk on his face. And I'm going, man, I'm hanging on by a thread here. You got to help me. You can't just smile at me.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, don't take this the wrong way, but what would make you think that what worked for your son at 6 months would work now that he's 10 months? And it was a heavy moment, but he thought, just practically, what would make you think that what was working for him then should be working now?
Man, it's power.
Wow. It really hit me. Well, it has brought me that thought as I haven't been able to get rid of it, and I've started to apply it to other areas of my life, but even the business. What worked for my grandpa in 69, 79, 89, my father took over leading the ship, or being the captain of the ship in 99.
Right.
But what would make us think that what worked then is how we should do it now? And so I think that pursuit now, there are tried and tested things that work. And I am a bit of a quote unquote old school sort of thinker myself. I enjoy using what has worked in the past, but it's a dangerous trap, in my opinion, to avoid, to where you don't try to pursue the norm from yesterday.
That's so good,
yesteryear.
Man.
And so I've tried, if nothing else, kind of a generic answer, but I hope there's some depth to it, in the sense that I'm just trying to bring a perspective shift, that the way it worked before, if we can replicate that again, I have no ego. Let's do it again. Great. We don't need to create the will.
Right.
But if we need to do something different, let's not be a slave to what we did yesterday. And I think I'm trying to bring a shift in how we look at things and how we feel about things, so then we can try to capitalize our opportunities today.
Man, when we come back from a commercial break, what I want to do is I want to unpack that a little bit more.
Yes, sir.
But what we want to do is we want to go to commercial break, and we'll be back in just a few seconds.
New Mexico has long been a land of potential. We could be this. We might do that someday. For renewable, affordable energy, someday is today. The PNM parent company is merging with Avangrid, a national leader in clean energy. We'll continue to invest in technology and energy infrastructure benefiting the state. We'll make 100% carbon-free energy by 2040 possible, while keeping bills affordable. New Mexico is more than a land of dreamers. We're doers.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. This is JP Espinoza with the Powered Up by PNM podcast. Today, we have a special guest, Tyler Chavez with Valley Fence, and we're unpacking some wisdom today. So if you haven't tuned in, you want to make sure I'm going to say rewind, because, it's old school. I grew up in the 80s and 90s, but we're going to rewind. You need to rewind this because it's so powerful on some of the information he's sharing. But hey, one thing I want to unpack, you said something in the first segment that was really powerful in terms of, trying to blend traditional process with a new perspective.
Yes.
Right? I think when someone has been really, really successful in life, they stick to their guns. Hey, this is what worked. This is how we do it. This is who we are. But the world has changed in terms of how people buy and how people receive information. Globalization has really shifted the playing field. So as an emerging leader at Valley Fence, right? Because I'm going to call you the emerging leader, right? Is that a fair statement?
I think it's fair. I'm the general manager right now, but it wouldn't be off base to say that if the stars align, I'm being groomed to help run that business someday.
Oh, yeah, man. I have no doubt, man, and you'll do well.
Thank you.
So as a future CEO of this company, okay, how do you balance this new perspective when you have traditional mindsets that, although they mean well, but they can inhibit growth?
Yeah, I one of the things, a small example would be working remotely.
Right.
Well, again, the pandemic, it is destructive and discouraging in many, many ways. Right. But it did force us to look at doing things maybe a little different out of necessity, right?
Right.
And one of those things was remoting in or working distance.
Right.
For years and years, we're pretty old school in work environment, construction,
sure.
right?
You bet.
I don't think it's out of line to say that is a millennia old, right? You know what I mean? What we're doing is thousands of years old, literally. Right. And so this is a very slow moving industry, to say the least. But even in an industry like ours, which moves slow, we realized, wait a minute, this whole get as many people in for as many hours as possible, because that's how you prove your salt at Valley Fence. It became kind of clear to us that pursuit and that effort given towards just a staggering amount of hard work is what it took to get going.
Right.
But the inefficiencies over the years now, at times, the people, we were leaning on people mercilessly.
Yeah.
You know? And I think that something we've seen recently is just, there are times somebody has to open the gate. Technology does not change. Somebody will turn the lights on at our facility theoretically in the morning. That needs to be a person within reason. That's a person now, and always will be. But there was other meetings, for instance, that my father was taking, where he would have whole days at the office where he was just slammed start to finish. And then we realized it didn't need to be that way. Right. So it's not that he's unwilling to work hard, or we are unwilling to get in the mud, quote unquote, but just not when we don't need to.
Right.
Not when we don't need. Don't take, like in boxing, don't take body blows you don't need to, because by the end of the fight, that's going to wear on you. And so we're trying to look in the mirror and say, hey, we work hard. It's one of the things that truly sets our business aside, and that sounds overly cliche, but we're willing to work incredibly hard, and that is what it takes in construction. But if you work hard at the wrong times, you don't have the energy to give it at the right time. Similar at your home, there is an appropriate time for self-care, even if you're a family man or a family woman or a mother or a father, because if you run out of juice, you don't have anything left for your family. And so we're talking business right now, but I think the same principle applies. If you have used all of your energy in even decent places, that's all right. But when there's a real special moment and you've got to dig deep, or a difficult moment, and you've got to dig deep and find a little extra juice, as much as this sounds a little bit like a motivational speech. There's a moment, those are big moments that are either for special opportunity or to really mitigate pain or struggle. And if you don't have the energy in those moments, you're going to limp through it. And what we're seeing is we're trying to pick the right time to lighten the load.
Yeah, no, that's super powerful, Tyler, because, even in my own business, there was a time in my life where I thought that working hard was a badge of honor, right? And so
absolutely, it's what drives a lot of us at our office. That's what I mean. 50, 60, 70 hours at the office was a badge of honor.
Yes.
That was great job. You came in early and you stayed late.
Right.
But that currency, it falls short in certain areas.
No, it does, because what happens is that you work hard, but we're not working smart. And we hear that is very cliche in terms of you got to work hard, but you got to work smart. But the reality behind it, if you don't take time to really understand what your strengths are, then how can you really optimize your value? And I think that's where most people, we struggle with. I'm like, okay, I'm working hard, but is there someone else who can do that work who's actually better? Matter of fact, I was visiting with a friend this morning after breakfast, and what was really powerful, he said he went through Gary Sanchez's The Why Institute, right? And he brought in the Why Institute, and you and I recently did the Why Institute, haven't we? And we'll get into that in our next segment. I think that's really the rocks and sand strategy. But anyhow, I don't want to give too much away yet. But what was really powerful is when he went through each of those team members and understood their why, he realized why he was getting frustrated with the results, because he had the wrong people in the wrong seats. It was really fascinating. A lot of times we get frustrated with our employees because we think they're not performing. And Larry Lujan, who's one of my mentors, mentioned this. He says, JP, you're getting frustrated with employees because you think they're a cancer, when in reality they just have a cold.
Ooh.
Right? How powerful is that, right?
Yes, that's heavy. A lot to unpack there.
Yeah. And he says, they're not a cancer. They probably just have a cold, and you just got to rearrange them so they're in the right environment. And by understanding their why, that was really a first start. And so my friend, who's David Gibson, he was sharing with me that he did this recently, and is starting to make a big difference. So you're exactly right. You operate in your gifts and your talents and apply those, and be disciplined about it.
It's kind of funny, my dad, we were joking a while back, and he said, son, being married is hard. I said, well, I would agree, but where are you going with this? It's a little out of left field, right? And he's like, but he's kind of got a smirk on his face, and he's like, for me and your mom about split the sheets, because I was heck bent she was going to pay the bills. Like that was her. We had set up early in our marriage that was going to be one of the things she was going to work on. That was kind of one of the things that she was good at, and she was going to work on that. And he said, for 20 years we did this, and we had just struggle after struggle, and not because your mother didn't do a good job of it,
right?
But I had way too many opinions on it,
right? And
I really wanted to do that, and so even when she did it great, I kind of had a bit of a problem with it, and so. The once every 4 years that something happened and the PNM got turned off or something when you were a kid. Right. This was a big moment for my father because he had so much of emotions and feelings and opinions about it. He said, it finally dawned on me, I should pay the bills. And so it's a joke now, but me and him joke around now. Maybe you should pay the bills.
Right.
Maybe you should, because this idea, he was like, it was just silly. I wanted to do it. Your mother did not really enjoy doing that. Right. She did a fine job of it, but there was some negativity associated with it because I wanted to do it.
Right.
I was the better person for it. No disrespect to your mother. I'm good at this. I enjoy doing this, and I have strong opinions on it.
Yeah.
And so this was kind of, to apply that back to a business again, having the right person doing the right thing, maybe even just 1 or 2% passion difference. Can be a huge effect on the big picture, on the macro.
Right.
When you have a little passion behind it. If you're just doing it, like you said, it's not hard to get off kilter and to think that person's actually the problem, instead of looking at it as maybe like a jigsaw or something. Instead, maybe taking a step back. You say 30,000 foot view, but take a step back and say, I thought that fit there.
Right.
It actually kind of works even, right?
Right.
The mind's powerful. I can make that picture even work.
That's right.
It actually even still looks like a meadow scene.
That's exactly right.
But then when you move the pieces around, all of a sudden it's blossomed. Right? We'll keep the metaphor going. All of a sudden that meadow really looks beautiful, and you go, oh, wait a minute. I had the wrong piece. It fit, right?
That's
the little
right.
knob, I pushed it in there. But it didn't really fit. And so these are kind of broad answers.
Sure.
But we're trying to apply these to our business, to where we have people who like what they're doing in that position.
That's power, man.
They enjoy it. It gives them purpose. In this world, man, you can work hard, but if there's no purpose to what you're doing, even if you're good at it, it will be hollow.
So, man, that's powerful. So let's kind of shift the conversation. This is a family business. Let's talk about the women behind the men at Valley Fence, right? Because your grandmother, your mother, now your wife, I mean, they have to support you guys. How does that dynamic work in a family business that, you guys are building?
Oh, man, the women in our family deserve an award, to say the least.
They deserve the badge of honor, don't they?
Yes, they deserve the awards, I promise. My dad and my father, I have some very strong men in my life from both sides of the family, and they are my heroes. But the women who raised me and who have been the support system behind the scenes, they really are the reason that we have the success we have. My grandma is a saint for putting up with my grandfather, and I would say that if he was in the room. As a young man, he worked incredibly hard, and then he played incredibly hard. Truly, all he knew was that a man was supposed to work really, really hard. Man. I think he had seen that. Yeah. Got to work incredibly hard.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things that there's a lot to unpack there.
Whew. Yeah.
When the top priority in life is hard work.
Yeah.
There's a lot of success that comes with it, but there's a ton of layers to that. And so he tried to learn to grow as a man.
Sure.
But that was a slow transition for my grandmother. She had to be a rock as this man learned and matured and grew with her. They started young, in those days, they got married young and they hit the ground running, and they got to working hard. And they asked, this one's a little risque, but they asked my grandma one time how long they had been married. She was in church at the time, by the way. That makes the story even better. Too damn long, is her answer. in the four-way of the church. And so if she doesn't make it to the pearly gates, we'll know why, right?
We know why.
I'm joshing, but no, her too damn long, Hito. But no, she has been a rock for many, many years, and as my grandpa learned and matured, he came in and he had a very powerful conversion when he came into the church.
Yeah,
and so my grandma's an angel, though, because she has been supportive in every walk of his life.
Sure.
When he worked hard and played hard, she was there supportive. When he was starting a business, they're supported. When he threw all the TVs out because he had a powerful conversion and we're not watching any more TV, it's poisoning our minds.
Yeah, I get that.
And I'm that's tongue in cheek, but just barely.
Yeah,
he had a very powerful conversion, and the pendulum swung really hard, and we're taking the kids out. They're going to Christian schools, and you know, I mean, his life changed almost overnight.
Wow.
Because even his spiritual life, he pursued it so hard that these were powerful moments. But my grandma had to be steady behind the scenes.
Yeah.
She couldn't afford to be this Tasmanian devil of good intentions, but a Tasmanian devil. She had to be a rock and steady. And for somebody whose pendulum naturally can swing a little left or a little right, that steadiness from my grandmother, that steadiness from my mom, as my dad, he was, you know, he learned from my grandfather. So as a young man, he was working hard in his own version of playing hard, different, but he was still working incredibly hard, and that was the highlight. And so, yeah, as that transition goes, I've got a chance to see the men before me blossom and change. Even my grandfather is such a different man now, and my grandfather such a different man now. My father, he worked a ton. I didn't see a ton of him, respectfully. Big moments, of course, as a young man. But in 8th grade, he started coaching my sister, high school basketball, and then me after that. And he's been heavily involved in that ever since. But we got to reap that first blessing of being around our father more. And it was just a huge shift in our life, though. That was my 8th grade year.
Wow.
And he committed that at that time he didn't want to blink and have both of his kids in college. And so he really, at that time, my sister was a sophomore and I was in 8th grade, and he truly committed on a personal level to our family, just as hard as he committed professionally earlier.
Yeah, I mean, that's super powerful. You know, having a big moment, because that steadiness is so important. And your kids grow up so fast. And if we're working so hard in the business, you blink and they're already grown. You know, just this past week we were on vacation, and my daughter was I have a 13-year-old and 11-year-old, two beautiful daughters. And my 13-year-old just came and she just laid on my chest and she gave me a hug. And it took me back to when she was like 3 or 4 years old. And I'm like, oh my God, this girl's a woman almost, you know? And I'm sitting here like, oh, where has time gone? But that just reminded me to just stay present, you know, and who they are, and make sure that we're there. So let me ask you this question. How do you balance work-life balance? You know, you're building a business, but also you have a beautiful wife, you got kiddos. How do you balance that?
It's a fine line, like most things, kind of a razor's edge there. I've seen, again, in that same vein, I saw my grandfather, I've heard about just how hard he worked.
Yeah.
But he still sits down in my office and says, I never watched your dad play a basketball game. That's a real story.
Wow.
With about tears in his eyes, and he's not. I'm the emotional one for both of us.
Yeah.
He shares, so he had tears in his eyes, and this came out of nowhere. We're just sitting at the office, and he said, I never saw your dad play a high school basketball game or college. I didn't watch him play.
Yeah.
And he didn't really say much else. You know, he kind of sat there for a sec. Okay, Hito, touched me on the shoulder and walked out. That was his big sharing moment. He shares differently than I do.
Yeah, indeed. I get that.
But I don't think we would have the business without his sacrifices made and without the family sacrifices made. But man, those sacrifices come at a cost.
Yeah, they do.
My father, like I said, about the first half of my life, he was always there for big moments and was wonderful. But didn't see him a ton because he was working a ton, a lot like you. Right. He was working incredibly. It was needed on most days, and the other days it was a badge of honor to keep doing it.
That's exactly right.
And so up until about 7th or 8th grade, we didn't have a ton of time spent on a day in, day out basis with each other. But I got to see that shift for him. And so it's been difficult for me to find my own path.
Right.
But I've had great men before me who took slightly different paths.
Sure.
Varying perspectives around you, I think, is critical as a human being. And I think for them, it's helped me to try to find some balance. Right now, I come in a little late in the mornings, and because I spend the mornings with my son.
Yeah.
And as much as I try to make that transition quickly for my wife, or make the transition back, it's always slow. Even if I started handing it back to my wife at 7, it seems like I'm not out the door till 8.
I get that.
The long goodbyes and the slow stuff. And at first, I was very, very uncomfortable with it all. Right. I was trying like heck, but I was so uncomfortable with it. I'm thinking my father's disappointed in me.
Right.
I'm not getting in. I'm not working enough hours. I'm not getting in enough. I'm anxious here, maybe I just need to step back, let my wife handle this, and go work some more.
That's so powerful, man. That's powerful.
I had those thoughts.
No, and we that plays so heavy on us as entrepreneurs, because if we're not at the office, all of a sudden I feel guilty almost, I'm like, oh my God, I need to be working. Like, what am I doing? What am I thinking? I can't take any time off, and that's just a mindset that I grew up in. But one thing that I found personally is that I had to learn to figure out, if I said yes to, let's say, a client or a prospect or to a business opportunity, whatever it may be, I'm saying no to something else. Right? Yes. And so I had to learn that just because I was pursuing a yes for an opportunity, I was saying no to something else. And when I understood that, I had to really realize, what is the cost of the no that I'm playing to? Yes. And that just comes through experience. That just comes through, I want to say wisdom, just because as I started to unpack that, I started realizing that there was other areas of my life that were unfulfilling. Ooh. Right. Yes. And when I took and when I observed what was happening, I had to make my yeses mean yes and my no's mean no's. Right. Yes. And that really put a priority in my life. And that's where I felt like I'm confident. So that's why I have no problem when, 2:00 in the afternoon, I can go play golf, because I need that time, because I understood what the yeses and the no's meant. Now, I don't go play golf every day. I wish I would, but
yes, sir. Don't we all?
Yeah, don't we all? But it just allowed me to say, I'm going to take time off, and I'm not going to worry about work, because I had to say yes to my family, or say yes to spending time with family in Houston.
And when you have good perspective on things, they can feed each other. I used to be very good at compartmentalizing things, but to a fault.
Right.
I was a Christian here. I was a husband here. I was a basketball player here. I was a construction worker here. And my behavior varied wildly based on the environment. But now I'm starting to realize that everything is connected. Man. Every person is connected. Every situation is connected. And so these things can feed each other if I have the right perspective. Getting a great morning with my son should propel me to a great afternoon at the office, a great day at the office. It's not either or. I was making it either or. If I had a good morning with my son, I immediately felt bad. I should have been at the office. My dad's the CEO, and he's there before me.
Right.
My grandfather, he probably never came in at this time once in his whole career. Right. And so you have all these thoughts and these things that can bog you down. But with the right perspective, it's shifted. My dad's really helped me with that. My grandfather's been kind, doesn't understand a ton of it. Pretty old school. He's kind of like, well, your wife's good at that, right? And I'm like, oh yeah, she's the best mother I've ever seen. Oh, well, how come you're helping them?
Yeah, man. I know. I get that.
Doesn't mean it loaded, but it's very new for him. But he's tried to be so gracious and patient with something that's new to him. My dad, it's new to him too, but it's easier for him. He has had more perspective on that too. And so he's been really great to me too, to where a few times he's verbalized that it's okay.
Yeah.
And so that, again, maybe to tie that back into mentorship, maybe that's a little bit of a different thing. But he's told me verbally a few times, I'm proud of you, son, for being involved with Henry's life.
Yeah.
I'm proud of you for helping be there in the morning. Now I need your hind end in here. Something's on fire.
Right.
Those moments happen, right?
Yeah, sure they do.
Or whatever. And when those moments happen, it's not hind end and it's not so quite that nice, right? But when the rubber meets the road, you've got to dig deep. But it doesn't have to be either or.
That's
a good
exactly
day at
right.
the office, same thing. A good day working hard should make it easier for me to go home to my son.
Yes.
Because I've put in a good day. Or I can check this box, or the opposite. It was a really cruddy day, but guess who's waiting for me? My son.
Yeah, man.
And so with perspective, it shifts everything. And even though I still struggle on a daily basis with, should I work more? Should I be here? These are time I'll never get back. Should I be with him? Should I be with my wife more? Or, wait a minute, I can't provide them the future I want for them if I'm not successful. And so the perspective, again, has tried to help me walk that line. And when I get a little off on one side, when I'm doing a great job at home, but I'm not quite engaged at the office, I've had those moments where I go, oh, I gotta get back because I have this great support system around me. Other times I'm working a bunch, but my wife's hanging on by a thread, and I haven't seen my son much.
Yeah, man.
I have a great push and pull, a great yin and yang in my life to kind of pull me back towards center. And for somebody that tends to have their pendulum swing a little left or a little right, the things in life that balance me and that ground me are so valuable.
And it's so easy to feel guilty that we're not putting the time in at home. There was a book that I read a couple of years ago called the Five Love Languages, I believe. And it's such a great book because when I really understood what my wife's love language was, what each of my daughter's love language was, then, and also not only that, but maybe my employees or people that I worked with who understood their love language, right? It allowed me to communicate in their native tongue.
Oh, I love that.
Right. And when that happened, it wasn't a matter of quantity of time. It was quality of time, because what I thought would take me 2 hours of playing with my daughter, when I really operated in her love language, like her love tank was filled like in 10 minutes.
Yes.
And she's like, "Daddy, I'm done. Can I go?"
You were speaking her language, though.
I was speaking her language, and she felt so fulfilled, And I think that's superpower. That's something that I learned through trial and error, because I'm like, I got to get this thing right, because I felt so guilty. Yes. And I would come and I would express my guilt, and whether it was my wife or my daughters, they'd be like, "I never felt that." But in my mind, I was like, I wasn't there.
We are so mean to ourselves.
Boy, man, we're vicious on ourselves.
Man, I don't think anybody's ever said anything to me as mean as I've ever said to myself on a daily basis. Not ever like these are the all-time bad moments. I mean, just daily basis. I don't think I've ever had somebody be as mean to me as I've ever been to myself. And like you said, there's been a few moments where my wife's hanging on by a thread and I've missed it. I just didn't get it.
Yeah.
But most of the time when I've really been vulnerable and said, "Hey, I'm sorry, I got to just open up and share."
Sure.
Like you, oftentimes I got a great wife that helps.
Right.
But she's like, this whole "you're a terrible dad and a terrible husband and you're not working hard enough" business, I don't feel that way.
Right.
I know Henry doesn't feel that way. Your father doesn't feel that way. And so, like, respectfully, the people that matter in your life don't feel that way. Maybe you're giving yourself a little too much credit in just because you said it's true. And so, it's kind of having that balance and having that person that grounds you. She's great in that capacity, but it doesn't just have to be your spouse. Whatever it is in this world that helps ground you and keep you focused and to get you back to that true north is really, really critical. But I know in my life, family and the support system I have is just helps kind of pull me back to that center.
Man, this is so good, man. We're going to go to a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about your vision and Valley Fence vision and how we can contribute to this wonderful chamber that we're part of. So let's go to commercial break.
New Mexico has long been a land of potential. We could be this. We might do that someday. For renewable, affordable energy, someday is today. The PNM parent company is merging with Avangrid, a national leader in clean energy. We'll continue to invest in technology and energy infrastructure benefiting the state. We'll make 100% carbon-free energy by 2040 possible, while keeping bills affordable. New Mexico is more than a land of dreamers. We're doers.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. This is JP Espinoza with the Powered Up by PNM podcast here at the Hispano Chamber of Commerce. Today we have our special guest, Mr. Tyler Chavez with Valley Fence. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been one of the best podcasts, although we have great people who are on our podcast, but we're unpacking some really great information in terms of family, life, balance, work ethic, vision, dreams, purpose for life. And so this has been such an insightful conversation. So today as we're talking about Valley Fence, I had the privilege to meet Paul Chavez and Tyler. I was working on the board of this chamber, and community services is the heart of Valley Fence. So what I want to talk a little bit about what you guys, when I say you guys at Valley Fence, talk about the contribution to community that you guys believe.
My grandfather is a pretty literal man.
Right.
He's a firm believer, for instance, in tithing. And he's heck bent that it doesn't, the good book, like he says, does not say that if you tithe and you're a good person, you'll be blessed.
Right.
He believes the blessing is in the rule.
Mm.
That he personally believes that's a rule written into the fabric of reality.
Come on, man.
Okay? And so he doesn't think that if you pay your tithe, if you donate some of the money you make to a good cause, whatever that is to you, he doesn't believe if you're a good person, this might come back around.
Right.
He believes the act of giving is there is a blessing in it. And he's a pretty literal man. He believes there is oftentimes a very literal blessing. This is not just pixie dust to him. He believes that if you give your money away, the Lord gives you more back than you had. And he continues to try to prove this over. And I've seen my father learn from him the same way, that he truly believes that if you're good to other people, it comes back. Whether you want to call that karma, or if you're a faith you're Christians, or whatever it is that kind of is your moral compass, so to speak, or whatever gives you direction, that's your business.
Right.
But this idea that being good to others, trying to do things that matter, will come full circle in a very literal way. And so my family are Christians, and so they do believe, there is a moral reason to do good things. But they also believe that there's a means to an end, that when you do something good in the community, when you do something for other people, that it comes full circle.
That's right, man.
And that those blessings are oftentimes, if not exclusively, larger than the one you lent out.
Man, that is so good.
And so
one of the things, and I applaud you for that, and I believe and adhere to those same values. One of the things that Valley Fence is doing in terms of giving back, not only to the chamber, but I want to talk about your relationship with CNM and supporting the trade community. We know that today a lot of our youth they go to school and they pick up education that's really helpful, but it may not be applicable to the job fields, right?
Yes, I've seen that a lot more.
Yeah, we're seeing that, and all of a sudden people are graduating with 4-year degrees, and they can't find a job because maybe they don't have the skill set or a trade. But what is Valley Fence doing in the area to support trade and bringing people into the trade of construction?
We have been so blessed in our family. It's provided us not only a good living, but we have seen men and women really thrive. By working with their hands. I think there's something that's ingrained in us as human beings. I not that it doesn't apply to women. I just don't speak for women often. But at least for men, that really resonates with us, to do something physical with our hands, and that it can not only provide a living, but I think it checks some boxes along mental health and physical health that I think nowadays are getting missed a lot. We don't have to go down a rabbit hole too far. It's probably for another day, but the mental health and physical health, but that human beings are wrestling with or not addressing in their lives, can be very detrimental. And so that's another topic. But even in that same vein, we see people really thrive by going and working hard and starting something and finishing it.
That's right.
And not only does it help keep your lights on, but there is good money to be made right now. We are a lot of the scale wages our guys are getting paid are higher than the administrative team, which is wonderful, but it's another hurdle for another conversation as well. But it's wonderful to see these people get paid to do something great, oftentimes with a machine, with a tool, with their hands. And so we have tried to partner up now with C&M and to try to not only, this is self-serving, I'm not going to lie, we're looking to get some good help. And so we're hoping to foster good help in the community. We want to try to bolster the labor force, but not just for Valley Fence. We're working to destigmatize how people feel about the trades. There's this weird idea, I'm not sure when it got started or exactly how in the liberal arts universities, or the idea around them that you get a 4-year degree, and that is prestigious, and then someone will be waiting there to give you a prestigious job. And one thing stacks on top of the other. Next thing you know, you're a successful businessman or businesswoman, and you have climbed the corporate ladder. For the people that get into those situations and it works that well, good for them. No problem. But oftentimes that's not the way it tends to work.
That's right.
In reality. And so not only do we need the labor force personally, but we have seen the blessing that comes from these trades. And so we're working with C&M right now, and we have a very concentrated 3-month campaign going to where we're trying to educate people on not only the classes available by C&M to try to help bolster that. It's very cost effective. Free is a strong word, but darn near in a lot of cases, you can learn a very, very technical skill for a fraction of the cost that may be getting a psychology degree in. a bachelor's in psychology or an associate's in psychology, which I actually am very fascinated by.
Right.
But it's very hard to go and sometimes parlay that into a fulfilling career because it's so specific or specialized at times. And so this is a something that we believe can not only help New Mexico,
right,
as an economy, but the people in New Mexico. We believe there'll be a blessing in a mindset shift. And then there's also really good money in it. And during financial tough times, it's great to have a job you can be proud of, that you can stand behind, that you can wake up in the morning, go into work and stand by something, and then take home a check that you can be proud of at the end of the week.
You know, man, you're exactly right. I don't know where trades were watered down in terms of respect, but you know, when you need a plumber, God bless you, need a plumber. When you need
no one's more important than a plumber when your water heater breaks.
Are you kidding me?
Nobody.
Man, I lived in Houston, man. My AC went out. That was like a death sentence, man.
It's incredibly important. And so these things are incredible, you know, and they're valuable. And so, yes, I'm not sure when the shift happened. Maybe we were trying to bolster higher education and we wanted to really remind people or show people the potential of it. And maybe it just kind of got out of hand. But certainly there's a weird kind of idea that you should feel like it's beneath you to go and have a trade. Man. And not only is that not true on a personal level, it will make you feel great to go and be successful and do something with your hands or with tools and see it come to fruition. You are manifesting something every day. Yeah. You are believing in it. And then you make it happen. You literally manifest miracles on a daily basis doing this. Now we all do that in our life in a different day, but that's getting down the real motivational talk, right?
I get you.
But even in business, you know, you have to take something that's not there yet and manifest it.
Yes.
And it starts with belief. And so this idea that it's okay to want to do those things, and then you can also make good money doing it.
Come on, man.
And let's just be honest. It's not either or. In a perfect world, we want it to be both.
You know, you're exactly right, man. So as we begin to wrap up here, let me ask you this question, okay? What are some of the things that you would like to tell our listeners today about, you know, in terms of looking forward into the future? You talked about hard work. You talked about values. You talked about being open-minded, but yet holding on to some of the traditions that got you there, you know? What advice will you give our listeners on what they can use to really build their business moving forward, especially in a where the future may seem a little foggy because we're emerging out of this pandemic situation. The world is changing. So talk to me a little bit about what advice would you give our listeners as a parting thought?
I think I would advise people to have a plan and to be bold. To walk boldly.
Come on, baby.
I think humans are supposed to walk boldly. I don't believe that we're supposed to be timid.
That's right.
I don't believe any facet, not in the faith or religious or moral world, that is not something that is beneficial to be timid.
Right.
You can be humble. But being timid, I don't believe, is something that benefits anyone in this world. And so I would advise people to walk boldly, to believe in themselves, and then to also have a plan, to be purposeful. If there's one thing I could tell a 16-year-old Tyler Chavez, it would be to be purposeful.
Be purposeful.
Channel your energy into something with a plan, and then you can make it a reality. But if you're just kind of shooting from the hip, you'll have good days and bad days. You'll have good moments and bad moments, and it'll be diverse. But I don't think it's hard to excel that way. And I have gotten pretty good at a lot of stuff, but I don't think I'm anywhere near an expert at anything. And so if I could just kind of be a little critical of myself, I would say be more purposeful as a young man, Tyler. If I could talk to a business or another man or woman, especially in the business world, I would say to be purposeful and have a plan. Yeah. Big plan, small plan, detailed plan. I think personality has a lot to do with that. But have a plan, then you can try to follow through on it. You can rally on it. When things get wonky,
come on, man.
You know, when the wind starts blowing, you can get back on course because you've got a compass.
That's
good. But if you're doing the best you can blink and be real off course, even though you were really well intended. So I would say walk boldly and have a plan while you walk boldly.
You know, that's so good, Tyler, because just this morning, my devotional, I like to read the Bible every morning. That's part of my devotion. And part of what I read this morning, it was 3 things that really stuck out that I can apply to not only my life, my business life, personal life. And number 1 is trust. Number 2, delight. And number 3, commit. And what does that mean? What that meant is exactly what you said. I got to trust in my plan, trust in the process, trust that I have a plan for my life, but I have to delight in it.
I like that.
Right?
I want to add that to my list.
I have to delight. I have to be okay with that. I have to enjoy it. Right. And when I can trust and I can delight, then I can fully commit. And when you commit, I believe that the soul of the diligent will prosper. I believe that people who are diligent to trusting and delighting and committing will prosper in all that they do, man. So, man, that's super powerful. Tyler, it has been a joy. It's been a pleasure to have you on the show today, man.
Thank you so much for letting me be here, and really, on a personal level, just want to say thank you for what you do, not only for this chamber, but what you've done for me. You've been a big mentor, and you've talked to me about business, but about life. And I appreciate that. And like I was saying earlier, I think they feed each other. I'm not compartmentalizing those anymore. Our families need to mix with our faith, and our business need to mix with our friendships. And when we can do that together, it's a really beautiful life we live in, and it'll happen organically when you can combine all those. So
man, that's so powerful. Well, that's Tyler Chavez from Valley Fence. Ladies and gentlemen, this was an amazing show today. I hope you took away some wisdom, some knowledge. I want to encourage you to listen to it again. Well, here at the Chamber, we believe that we are New Mexico proud because we are New Mexico strong. We believe that you are one connection away from making your dreams a reality. And here at the Chamber, we believe in supporting you in your pursuits and your dreams because every dream is possible. So this is JP Espinosa with the Powered Up by PNM podcast with the Hispano Chamber of Commerce right here in Albuquerque. We're signing off, and we salute you, and we look forward to seeing you on our future episodes. Have a great day.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today for the Power Up by PNM podcast hour in partnership with the Hispano Chamber of Commerce. And again, a big shout out to our sponsor, the folks at PNM, who help keep your businesses energy efficient. Don't forget to join us every Tuesday at noon to hear from those in the community that are moving us forward. And for more information about the Albuquerque Hispano Chamber of Commerce, call us at 842-9003 or visit us online for more information at www.ahcnm.org. And to replay this podcast, add a /chamber chat.